Hi, I'm the birth-fed angel. Today, for the first video we have, I'm going to watch this video called Atheism, Contradictory at Best, because I am an atheist, one of those edgy teenager atheist types, and I feel like this video is going to be terrible, and I like to torture myself like this by watching these videos, but I will pick it apart to some degree, or in the very least react to it, because reacting is a very popular thing on this platform. Alright, let's go. But first, so to begin,
why do people generally think that some actions are right and some actions are wrong?
Okay, just I know where they're starting with this. I'm not going to cut into the video every 6 seconds. I don't plan to, but right off the bat, he's going to have the moral argument be presented, which is saying, if morality is objective, then how can you have objective morality without a God? And this is really dishonest, I feel, as an argument, just because most people don't know about moral philosophy. They haven't really thought through it, and so it's really easy to just take an argument from ignorance or an argument from incredulity or all these fallacious arguments and just pile them together and say, see, you don't know where objective morality comes from. As this goes on, I might talk about my ideas on objective morality or on morality philosophy, but I'll just see where he's going with this.
Regardless of their subjective opinions? Why do most people generally believe that it's unfair for a known cheater to win a race at the Olympics? Why do most people believe it's evil or wicked for an adult to torture an innocent child simply for the fun of it? Or for a man to force...
Sir, okay, I see what he's doing. It's an appeal to emotion kind of thing. He's putting forth these really... I don't know how to describe it, but these situations that are immoral, clearly, at least we feel that they're very immoral, and so he's putting these forward as extremes, rather than, but it possibly could have been a good thing. Maybe he did this first, because I don't really, the Olympic cheating thing I don't really care about. Maybe that's the middle argument, but I feel like he probably, if it would have been more fair, but obviously he's trying to push a certain idea forward, but it probably would have been more fair to put very morally ambiguous things forward and say, see, if these things, like that wonderful thought experiment where if there's a fat man in a cave that's filling with water, and this fat man gets stuck in the only hole that they can get out, and the only way to get through and save 20 people inside that are going to drown if you don't push this guy through, but he's not getting pushed through. The only way to do it is if you blow him up. So you have to blow him up. And so someone has to go forward and do that to save the rest of the 20 people. And in this thought experiment, it's like, well, is murder moral? I think it is, and because it's more utilitarian to murder the one guy, save 20 people. And if you actually were not to do that, you have the moral responsibility to do that, so you would be immoral. But you can't as easily make this argument, especially since this is an argument from emotional appeal rather than an argument. Like, he's obviously pushing this forward, but I'll continue the video.
Force himself sexually upon a woman. Why do people...
Actually, that's something that religious... whatever.
People generally think that such actions are outright wrong.
Yeah, on the last one, consent is not a religious idea at all. Actually, like, Christianity never pushes forward consent as an idea. Yeah, whatever.
Because most people, even many atheists, know that real, objective good and evil exist. Although objective morality...
Okay, wait. We gotta read this. He said something different than the... Okay, because most people, even many atheists, know that real, objective good and evil exist. Why? Okay, so this is kind of conflating objectivity with subjectivity. Okay, we'll see.
Although objective morality may be outside the realm of the scientific method, every rational person can know.
You could read... Okay, like Sam Harris did bring up a good... Sam Harris wouldn't agree with that, and I wasn't necessarily swayed by Sam Harris's views or anything like that, but I think there is a certain basis for you to have a scientific method prove that some things are more moral than others, but the idea is that you have to have the subjective basis of well-being. And so you have to say, creating well-being for all of us as the basis of morality, which is a completely subjective assertion. You can't just, that's not objective. But based on that subjective assertion, from there, just like healthcare, you can build up your idea of what would be more moral. And in that sense, from that point, which is a very pragmatic point to make, like, it's useful for us to use that subjective basis for this. But that's not, there's no way to actually prove that that's an objective basis. It's just simply not. But you can build up what is objectively more moral than other things based on the basis of well-being. And you can use brain scans to understand, like, this creates more pleasure or more pain than this would. And there are a lot of factors that go into it, of course. It's very complex. But at the same time, it's like it's going to be subjective. Anyways, that's my views.
Know that some things are innately good while other things are innately evil. Atheist Michael Ruse admitted in his book Darwinism Defended that the man who says that it is morally acceptable to rape little children is just as mistaken as the man who says that 2 + 2 = 5.
Okay, for one thing, bringing up one atheist, not even like the most popular of atheists, and especially not an atheist that debates theists and all that, when you really think about it, racism, that's now one of the biggest, like, saying the N-word is a terrible thing. Well, there's certain contexts and people that can say it, but most of the time for a white male to say the N-word, or even a white female, whatever, a white person, to say the N-word in a derogatory fashion and show a clear act of racism, especially in a place like Canada. Like America, they're, yeah, sure, neo-fascists and all that, but in Canada, for a person to do that, that's insanely immoral. That's terrible. I think that's hate crime, which we have laws against. Good thing. When you have something like racism, go back 300 years, and that was a completely normal thing. Probably even less than 300 years ago. And so it's like, it's kind of worrisome to base your idea of an objective morality when your religion actually advocated for slavery, and then it also it advocated against slavery, because you can read the book two different ways and get two different meanings out of it because it's a book. And if you're trying to get your morality, your objective morality from your book, your religious Bible or whatever, that is a terrible source to get it, because you can interpret that in so many different ways. And then you also run into the problem of just conflating your traditionalism with your religious beliefs, and you say you have to hold both of those, which is a very dangerous thing. That's why people are transphobes, like in the religious communities. They're often transphobes. There's really nothing in the Bible that says trans people are not real or valid or good. Like, there's nothing like that says that thou shalt not be trans. That's ridiculous. And yet, so many religious people really, like, are just terrible to trans people and kick them out of their homes and all that sort of thing. And, like, obviously not everyone's like that. But there's definitely a correlation that can be made between religious households and trans people getting kicked out. And so it's like, there's nothing in the Bible that says that being trans is immoral, and yet you say that morality is supposed to be objective. I don't know, that just seems like a contradiction right here.
Philosophers Francis Beckwith and Gregory Kukul said it well. Those who deny obvious moral rules, who say that murder and rape are morally benign, that cruelty is not a vice, and that cowardice is a virtue, do not merely have a different moral point of view, they have something wrong with them.
Oh my God.
Most rational people do not...
That was a moral statement. That was an assertion. A subjective assertion, most definitely. And when you have a subjective assertion made by two philosophers, that doesn't suddenly make morality objective. And that's the core of this guy's moral argument. And so he really should bring up points why this is objective. That's kind of the core. If it's not objective, then... And I think he's trying to put that forward, but it's in a really disingenuous way. I don't know. It's not convincing.
Not merely feel like rape and child abuse may be wrong.
Okay. Actually, this is, I should note, with most of these videos, these aren't actually to convince any atheists or any non-Christians that Christianity is true. These are just to affirm the beliefs of Christians. So if a Christian is thinking, how do I deal with this certain contradiction of the Bible or of God or of my ideas of my religion? How do I deal with this? They're having that cognitive dissonance time. Watching these videos, or even just having these videos play throughout their childhood or throughout their whole life, really, while they're a Christian, continually affirms their beliefs so that they don't feel they have to question. And it makes their faith stronger, which makes it so that they're less likely to get out of the religion. So these videos are not actually to convert atheists. I'd be very surprised if this actually converted any atheists, or these sorts of videos ever converted any atheists. I could see maybe like a book written about this could convert an atheist if they actually read into it, but I don't know. And there are just so many things, like as an atheist myself, I don't even believe that Jesus ever existed. There's not really good reason, and I read a book that very much disproved that and had like good historical evidence going through. I don't think Jesus even existed, so there are so many assertions here that are just never going to be touched on, because this isn't about converting atheists. There are so many steps they have to move forward to actually get that far, but they're not going to, because this is about just reaffirming Christians' beliefs already. Anyways.
They are wrong, innately wrong. Just as 2 plus 2 can really be known to be 4, every rational human can know that some things are objectively good while other things are objectively evil.
Just because you feel that it's
However,
objectively
reason
good or evil,
demands that objective good and evil can only exist if there is some real objective point of reference.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about well-being being the basis. And that is a subjective basis. You have to assert subjectively that is the basis, but there's good reason to. And I've heard people say that if you talk to someone long enough and you really like crack them down on their views, it'll all come to a basis of well-being. Like, for example, even Christians, they're like, why do you do this? Why are you doing all this to get to heaven? It's like, well, if you get to heaven, you're going to have lots of pleasure forever. And so you outweigh it, and it's like that whole Pascal's wager thing, which is ridiculous, but that's a whole other thing. But Christians, they think, well, I'll have lots of pleasure, I'll have good well-being in the afterlife. And since they've been convinced of an afterlife, they'll do anything to get that afterlife. And so they can give up all the pleasures, even though usually Christian life isn't really giving up that many pleasures, just like it makes you sexually repressed and makes you kind of an asshole sometimes. It's about it. And also psychological issues it can do, but that's not really a choice. It's more just a product. But anyways.
If something such as child abuse can be legitimately criticized as morally wrong, then there must be an objective standard, some higher law which transcends space and time.
Okay. Whoa, okay. That, wow. Transcending space and time. You could say from the basis of health, which is a nice thing that Sam Harris brought up. I'm not actually a big fan of Sam Harris, especially his eugenics thing, but yeah, still, he brought up an interesting point about the health, where your health system has objective things, like homeopathy. That's a complete hoax. It's a cult. It's not real health, medicine, science, all that. It's not real, right? So that is objectively not helpful for health. Drinking poison, that's negative health. I don't know. That's the idea. And so it's like there is an objective standard once you understand the basis of health being some sort of physical well-being or that sort of thing. And so when you have a goal set that is subjective, then you can build something off of there. And he's just asserting that that somehow this base of morality, this base of well-being, even though he's not actually saying well-being because that's not a religious term, I guess, when they talk about morality. He's claiming that well-being in this sense is actually an objective basis for morality. And he hasn't actually asserted why, because this is obviously just dogma at this point, saying things like higher power and all that.
Recognition by atheists of anything being morally wrong begs the question.
No, it doesn't. Like, this annoys me when people say that. Atheists can't be moral, they can't have any moral compass. Moral systems created by atheists, completely secular moral systems, are way better than religious moral systems, because religious moral systems say you can't do this, can't do this. They don't give good reasons for it ever, because their goal is not about morality. Their goal is usually about control or other things, or just continuing a certain status quo of judging minority groups or whatever. There are lots of things that run into it, lots of cultural things, and we're not culturally progressing towards a better, more moral society if we take these ideas that are 2,000, 5,000, really, really old ideas, like 5,000 as in from the Old Testament. You're taking these old moral ideas and you're not moving forward. You're not progressing your society, which is why you have so many stupid ideas that come out of this, and yet people are just blindly following them, and they're not taught to actually question their morality, question their philosophy, question why they believe things and why they do things. They're not told to question that. They're not allowed to question that even, because that interferes with the idea of like questioning your faith. You're not really supposed to introspect, because then you could change your views, because it's really not that hard to change your views once you start introspecting. Once you start the path of introspection, right? That's the scary thing. So you're supposed to have introspection within certain boundaries. Anyways, this is a tangent. But the main point I'm making is just because atheists have a different moral system than you believe morality exists in, that is also, this is a really creepy face, but that's not at all grounds to say that your morality is right, atheist morality is wrong, just because you misunderstand and strawman their idea of morality, which is a little bit fundamentally different than yours. Yours is just orders from a divine being, also orders from a book if you don't believe the divine being is existent, while an atheist's moral framework would be built on well-being, or there are actually many things it could be built on, but it's built, and it's way more situationally specific, and that actually makes a big difference, because morality should be more specific. It should be, there are lots of moral grays in life, and just taking thou shalt not murder is a terrible law, especially when you take into account the idea that thou shalt not murder does not apply to the out-groups. It only applies to the in-groups. Or thou shalt not kill, I guess. Murder would be killing within your in-group, while the thou shalt not kill rule just means no killing anyone in your in-group. Well, unless you decide that they're not in your in-group anymore because no true Scotsman fallacy. But if they're in the out-group, you can kill them, right? Like, God ordered so many people to go around killing people. I think there are 2 or 3 verses in the Bible where God orders people, Old Testament, of course, where God orders his people to cut open the bellies of pregnant women and dash their fetus babies on the rocks. So obviously he doesn't care about abortion. There are lots of things where it's like your morality, your ideas of morality just break down to the ideas where it's like you're just following dogma. You're not following your Bible. You're not really following any God, because that's really just a certain subconscious brainwashing effect that you're using on yourself to continue these beliefs. It's really toxic, and it's really kind of sad.
How can an atheist logically call something atrocious, deplorable, evil, or wicked?
Subjectively? How can an atheist call something beautiful? Like, you're asking these leading questions, but it's like, you don't have to have a God in the picture. That's actually just a God of the gaps at that point. It's like, oh, well, I don't have a reason for my morality, so I have to create an invisible man in the sky that judges me for having sex. Like, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous jump. It's a complete non sequitur, but nonetheless, he's putting it forward as if it has some sort of validity to it.
According to atheism, man is nothing but matter in motion. Humankind allegedly...
No, this is stupid. Atheism is just the lack of belief in a God. Like, Buddhists are atheists. You can believe in a spirit still. You can believe in some sort of cosmic motion, some sort of identity beyond the physical. Like, atheism does not mean any of this. What he's talking about is like naturalism, but that's not even... I am not a naturalist necessarily. Like, I guess I technically am, but I wouldn't hold any of these beliefs, because this just isn't important. And also, nothing but matter in motion is a very misleading idea. It's like, sure, you technically on a scientific level, but no one thinks this way. And he's putting it forth as if it's like a ridiculously oversimplified version of seeing the world. And it's like, well, it is. No one would deny this. And yet he's putting it forth as if it's some sort of crazy thing where it's like, yeah, technically you are also matter in motion, as you would put it, or as atheists would put it. Also, man, why can't we just say humans? I'm not so much into humankind. There, I like that below. I'm not so much into saying man as the representation, the male. I'm not super into that.
allegedly evolved from rocks and slime over billions of years.
Okay. So many assertions. I hate this because I have to pause every 2 seconds. Evolved from rocks. That's just a creationist creationist talking point that they just continue to push forward despite everyone saying that that's ridiculous. But slime? That's hard to define. Sure. Slime, I'm fine with. We didn't evolve from rocks. Rocks have always been inanimate. But amino acids, technically, which are a lot smaller than slime, but you could... It's very misleading and kind of stupid. But billions of years? Sure. A lot of billions of years.
But whoever speaks of wrong rocks, moral minerals, or corrupt chemicals, people don't talk about...
Can anyone take this seriously if it has, like, alliteration as its point? Like, it's literally, the point there was alliteration, to make it sound silly. That's the point. No one's asserting that rocks or minerals have morality. We're asserting that humans have morality, which is why it's subjective. If humans didn't exist, human morality, as we know, it wouldn't exist. Other animals have morality. There's good evidence for that. So obviously, other animals like dogs would still have morality within their groups. Morality is just to make it so that they don't kill themselves or kill each other or destroy their societies. Because if they did, well, then they wouldn't go on, and therefore natural selection would make it so that those that don't go on. That's really very, very simple. But he's trying to just push in a creationist idea, which definitely shows that he's not trying to convince any atheists with this video. He's actually just trying to, as I said earlier, reaffirm people's beliefs.
Morally depraved donkeys, evil elephants.
Actually, very much. You can.
Moral monkeys.
Oh.
Dogs are not depraved.
Okay, this is stupid. There's good evidence for there being animal morality. Like, and animals have emotions too. Animals, like, they have a lot of very similar aspects. Of course, the more intelligent they are, the more close to humans. But you can find dogs fall into depression after their owners die. Like, there's so many things where it's like, yeah, their morality, but that's beside the point, the emotion part. Dogs do have a sense of morality, and many animals do have senses of morality. It's just different than us. Like, we have slightly different... We have... Our morality applies to us and the well-being of humankind. And I actually think that's wrong. I think it should apply to all well-being, or at least well-being of all animals with moral value. But nonetheless, generally, our morality, like most people's morality, applies to humankind, or at least, like, our own kind, really. Which is not the best in every sense, but at the same time, that's just kind of how the bird flies sometimes. But that doesn't mean that dogs are, like, we hold different animals to different standards, obviously, and it's like, this is making the argument that animals aren't applied to the same moral standards as humans, but they have their own senses of morality, and they still would. We would think it's immoral for a dog to bite off a human's leg, in a certain sense. I don't know, it's very disingenuous.
Depraved for stealing the bone of another dog. Pigs are not punished for being immoral when they...
Wait, punished by who? Who's going to punish them? See, this is asserting that you need a god to punish them. Who would be punishing them? Would it be pigs that punish each other? If you ate another pig's young, like if you had one pig, pig A, and they had their babies, and then you had pig B, and they had their babies, and pig A ate pig B's babies, I'm pretty sure there would be a feud there. That's just a very natural, like, that's like the natural order of things. Mothers, and especially, well, just any parents will protect their babies. I feel like that's just something that's been ingrained in any species. Well, species that are close to us, mammals, most likely.
They eat their young. Male animals are not tried for rape if they appear to force themselves upon female animals.
Oh my gosh. And it's like, oh, you're trying to say that we believe in rape, and it's like, okay, this is so stupid. The Bible isn't even against rape. There's literally nothing in the Bible. There are things against adultery, against having sex before marriage, against... I'm not sure if there's anything against masturbation. I'm pretty sure there probably would be. But if not, then there's dogma against it. Like, there are so many things, homosexual marriage, like, and sex, I guess. there are so many things that the Bible talks about there being sex in these certain circumstances, but consent is never in there. So you can't even make this assertion.
The fact that humans even contemplate morality testifies to the huge chasm between man and animals.
No, what the
Simply
frick?
put,
animals have moral. Oh my gosh, I'm not even.
The moral argument states, if objective moral values exist, then God exists.
I don't agree with that first premise at all, actually. Because you could have objective moral standards. And also, what God? Like, this is like it's like so black and white. It's like, well, there are like hundreds of millions of gods that people could think of. So why your God? Why the God with the capital G that's named God? It's
Objective moral values such as good and evil, justice and injustice do exist.
You also you failed to assert that.
Therefore, God exists. The moral argument for God's existence exposes atheism as either self-contradictory or outright appalling. You see, the atheist must either reject the accuracy of the moral argument's first premise and illogically accept the indefensible idea that objective morality somehow arose from rocks and reptiles, or he must reject the argument.
Okay, so I disagree that. I think objective morality could definitely exist in other senses, and you wouldn't need a god, and especially not this God. So that's
second premise that
silly.
Objective moral values exist, and accept the utterly repulsive idea that such things as rape, murder, and child abuse can never once be condemned as objectively wrong and evil.
Yeah, it's an uncomfortable idea for some people, but yeah, objectively no. But that doesn't mean that they aren't wrong and evil in any pragmatic sense, just philosophically. No, they are not objectively wrong and evil, and that's kind of a silly thing to assert, actually.
What's more, if atheism is true, individuals could never logically be punished for such immoral actions, since they could not be proven to be inherently immoral.
Okay, yeah, they could be. If someone punches you, that's not... Is that an immoral act? I don't even know. I guess that would technically be. That's a very mild immoral act to punch someone, right? If they punch you, you punch them back. Well, that's one way of doing justice. But, like, there is justice because that's just how we work as a society. We punish those who go against what our society is trying to push forward as good and helpful for our society to flourish. If you're burning down houses, obviously people are going to put you away so you cannot burn down houses. And hopefully... I think retribution is kind of important. If they built back those houses that they burned down, or at least helped in the building, that would be good too. Then they would know, okay, this maybe burning down houses isn't a very good thing. But then again, arson is cool. So,
if there is no God, then there is no objective basis to say that some things are right and other things are wrong.
Agreed.
Reason demands that objective...
Also, if there was a God, a God doesn't necessitate that, but okay.
Good and evil can only exist if there is some real objective reference point outside of nature.
Oh, this is exactly what I was, okay. Oh, interesting.
The only reasonable answer to an objective moral law for humans is a supreme, supernatural, moral lawgiver.
Okay, before that completely fades away. One question, why your God? Second question. I feel like religious people always forget that their God is not the only God that is conceivable. The second question I would pose is, why do you need an objective reference point outside of nature for something to exist? Why can't something exist within nature? That's just a ridiculous claim. Like, saying that, I guess linguistically or I don't know, in some objective sense, when you look at the sky and say it's blue, blue is the color we use to describe the color of the sky, and thus that is an objectively correct statement, right? You don't need an objective reference point outside of nature to describe that is objectively true. We use the words to mean that. But yeah, okay, philosophically, this is technically a philosophical argument, you might, but that still doesn't prove that your God is anything. And also, you still haven't brought up really why objective good. Just because people feel that it is, that's all it is. It's just an argument. It's very intuitive, but it doesn't actually prove anything in a philosophical sense, which is why it actually might convert a few people. I feel like this is one of the most compelling arguments out there for Christianity, which is why I tackled it first. But there are a lot of problems with it when you actually look into it, and when you actually understand moral philosophy. This kind of seems a little bit silly. So I would just continue to watch and listen to all sides of something before you actually follow that idea to its end point, because that can be very problematic. And that's usually what happens on the right wing, where you just get an idea that seems intuitive and you just follow that all the way, and then wow, you're in a place where you're actually not even thinking for yourself anymore and you're demonizing thought. That's very scary. So anyways, I'll just finish the last 10 seconds of this crap. Oh. Well, that was nice. Anyways, thanks for watching. This was my first video talking about this atheism, contradictory at best. Like and subscribe. But more than that, actually, comment. I want to hear your thoughts. That's the big thing about this channel. I just want to hear people's thoughts. Well, yeah, anyways. This was The Birth-Fed Angel. Hopefully, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.